Menu. You go down to Maintenance, go down to Test LC Display. You'll have a whole bunch of what I like to call gobbledygook on the front panel here. Down arrow one time. First line should start with a capital P. This next maneuver is called a three-finger roll or a dual punch roll. And what you have to do is you have to push and hold the down arrow key, the enter key, and the menu key. You have to do this in approximately a half a second in order for it to properly work. If it works properly and I do this right, the word access will show up. The simple way to do it is with the door open, take 3 fingers and just like that. The word access shows up. You hit enter on this and you will notice you get a flashing block. You now have to spell out the word update with a capital U, everything else in lowercase. And to do that, you use the up and down arrow keys to scroll through the alphabet. And you will notice it starts off with uppercase. Now if you want, you can scroll down this way, but you'll be a little while because you got to go through all the extraneous characters before you get to the alphabet. If you make a mistake, unfortunately, you must start over. It does not allow you to backspace over the characters. And you'll notice I'm hitting enter after every character when I have it where I need it to be. Now that I have the word update entered, I can back all the way out. And you'll notice the arrow appeared here on the front menu now. And if you go down, you will see I have the private menu available. And we'll go into the private menu here in a second because you're going to see this is where I go to calibrate the unit after I make a change. So now we want to go up and change the model number because I just upgraded this model. Anytime you do an upgrade to the models of the libraries, you have to go into Configuration, Advanced, Changer, go down to Mechanics, hit enter on the arrow key on the model number, and you'll notice your block starts flashing. Using the up and down arrow keys, I can change model numbers to match whatever the model number of the library is that I have. When you're upgrading certain models out in the field, the only thing you really upgrade is you add more faces to the carousel. When we send up, for example, if this went out as a 4440, all it would have on it is face 1 and face 3 would have magazines and mounting brackets on it. You would order the upgrade kit and you would get the mounting brackets to get on the face 2 and 4 and 4 magazines. Well, when you put the magazines in and you put the mounting brackets on and the magazines in, then you need to come out here and change your model number to the appropriate model because you've just changed a lot of things. The biggest thing is you've doubled the capacity in tapes. Once you change that point, while you're in here, if you ever change your barcode reader, what's nice is we put label right on the outside here that tells you the model number of the barcode reader you're using, and this one happens to be a WA3700. And if you look at barcode reader, it says WA3700. So now we know those two match, so that's proper. The other thing is, somewhere on the handler, either underneath or on top, is a carriage letter identification. It'll either be an A carriage, a B carriage, or a C carriage. This is important when you set this up because this carriage setting is what determines what drives are available to you when you're adding drives in and out of the library configuration. If this was on an old B carriage, we would not get the AITs. We would only get the DLT setups on some of the older models. Going on down, you know it has door lock none. The next one here is if we put a fiber channel on this, you would have to sit there and change the fiber channel. And you only have 2 options under fiber channel. It's either none or A. So once you put a fiber channel on it, you must go in and change this section also. I/O port, this says none. We need to change that because we do have the I/O port as seen right here. So because we have an I/O port, we need to change it to A. There's only 2 options here, A or none. And that's everything that gets changed inside this menu area. So when you exit out after changing that, the front menu automatically displays calibration required. Now then, here's a technical tip coming up for you. Menu. Remember, to calibrate the unit, we have to go into the private menu. And I go down to calibrate, and when I hit enter, it says remove all cartridges from unit and install empty magazines. Well, you really don't have to do that. All we're going to do is leave face 1 empty. In other words, everything on face 1 of the carousel from top to bottom, including the fixed slot, the I/O port, and the private slot, need to be empty. And you're going to see the reason why as you watch the carousel and carriage do their maneuvers. It only does this on face 1. Once it's done doing it on face 1, it then comes out and it inventories the rest of the library. This is very beneficial when you have one of the larger libraries like the 600. You do not wish to be moving 600 cartridges out of the library to do this calibration. But the thing to remember is, on the dual-sided units, both sides face 1 needs to be empty. Not just the one side, both sides face 1 needs to be empty. We're going to go ahead and hit enter here, and it's going to run the calibration. What it's doing is it's setting the high and the low for the insertion cartridge. Right now it's doing it on the private slot. Just did it there. Now it goes up and it does it on slot 10 of the first magazine. Now the magazine numbering and slot numbering system are very simple in the QUALSTAR libraries. You have up to 6 faces, face 1 through 6, depending on the size of the library. You also have in between 2 and 5 magazines. So each magazine on each face starts at A, B, C, and on the taller units at D and E. And the first slot in the first magazine is A01, where the top one would be A10. Then the same thing on face 6 would be 6A01 through 6A10. That's how we keep track for constant rolling within the library. The handler's now doing the same maneuver it was doing on the fixed slot, and it's still going to do it next on the I/O port. Once that is done, it will then inventory the library and your calibration will be completed. And you'll be able to put your tapes back in on face 1. If you're running a barcode label system with a barcode reader, you don't necessarily need to remember the exact order that you took the tapes out of or put them back into on slot 1. Or face 1 rather. And the reason for that is because the software will take over when it goes to look for a tape, because it knows what label is faced with that tape. It's a correspondence between the software and the hardware here. So I can put them all back in and it doesn't matter. It will sit there and spit them out appropriately, and the software goes in after it's been rescanned. The software goes in and says, okay, I want tape number 65. It goes and finds tape 65 regardless of where it's at in the library. This feature is very unique for the software and the hardware to interact so well, because it allows a faster inventory and a faster access to tapes, especially on the large libraries. We're done calibrating. Now we're doing our scan. And we're finished. The unit is now calibrated and ready to be used. If you would have had any errors during your calibration, they would be displayed here. The error code would be displayed here, and a numeric code will be displayed. Most of them will say enter to proceed, and they will go away. They're non-fatal. However, I would always recommend you give us a call when you have that type of an error, and we'll take it and track down and figure out what that numeric sequence code is to see what it failed, what caused it to fail. When you're done doing all your changes from a maintenance standpoint, I would go into my private and I would go down and I would clear access. This avoids the possibility of anybody going in and changing anything without you knowing it. And then you exit out, and the private menu, you will notice, is gone. It does not exist anymore. That concludes the taping and the showing of the QUALSTAR unit. I hope you learn a lot from this. I've enjoyed doing it. And once again, thank you for purchasing and selling QUALSTAR.